Despite making some pretty bold decisions in the past few years of my life, I realized that I don't regret any of them. On the contrary, I'm very happy I made those decisions. Today I'm going to share with you my decision-making process. Hi, I'm Mary Jane and I'm 30 years old. And in the past 8 to 9 years, I went to live abroad for a year. I decided to become a YouTuber instead of taking a more traditional career path. Despite having a master's degree, I quit all my life and relationships to go travel around the world, be a digital nomad, and couch surfing in several different countries. And this past year, I got married because of the pandemic, and believe me, marriage was not in my life plans at all. These are only a few examples of the life decisions that I made in the past few years, and by comparing myself to other people, I realized that it's not that common to consider your life choices good life choices. So I thought maybe it's beneficial to someone if I share my thought process when I make a decision. It's not how you can make good life decisions, it's how I make them, okay? So I don't know if this might be a general rule that is valid also for other people. I'm just bringing to the table my experience, and then you with your common sense do whatever you want with it. To begin, let's ask the question, how do I make my choices? What are my behaviors influenced by? And this piece of cardboard today is gonna be my whiteboard or blackboard because I don't have anything else. So my choice, my behavior is determined by what? By simply my desires. And pay attention to the fact that I'm talking about choice and not decision. For me, there is a difference. In fact, a decision is more a powerful act, an active action, whereas choice is a little bit more passive, but we're gonna get back to this later. So I realized that my desires are the ones that determine my choices and my behaviors. And now already there should be 1,000 alarm sirens, because you might tell me, what are you talking about, Mary Jane? Your desires? Our desires are misleading, are bad, they bring out our animal instinct. Well, my desires are determined by my long-term happiness. So happiness means a lot of things in the English language and probably in the other languages too. In this case, I'm not talking about happiness as the intense joy of the moment. Happiness in this case means a situation where you are content with how things are in your life, you are satisfied and fulfilled with the person you are and how things are going with you. When I talk about a person who is happy, I mean a person who does not ask anything else from life than he already has. So, my mind works like this. My desires are determined by my long-term happiness. Most of the times I don't desire to achieve something or to have something or to do something that is not going to bring me long-term happiness. And how do I do that? Well, I ask myself a very important question, very simple one, and I ask it every single day, multiple times a day, every time I find myself in a situation where I have options. I ask myself, which one of these options is gonna make myself happy in the long term? That's how my desires come out. And based on what I desire in the moment, I make a choice. I don't make a decision most of the times. I tend to make a choice that determines my behavior. So my actions, how I behave in the world or with other people. Now, one might think that this is very complicated process. To me, it's really not. To me, on the contrary, this whole thing comes very natural if you have one thing, awareness. So in the moment I become aware that I'm in this situation of making a choice, to me it's very simple to activate this whole thing, and it's very spontaneous in the back of my mind really at this point of my life. Whereas if I'm not aware, I don't have that awareness when I'm in this situation, I'm probably just gonna determine my choice from my momentary desire, which is based on short-term satisfaction. Or Americans use the word gratification, I think. Instant gratification, that's what they call it. So I didn't grow up thinking in this way, but I had a way more traditional Western approach, I would say. Us Westerners are used to have more of a impulsive way of thinking. I don't know if impulsive is a word in English, I'm sorry. What I mean is that we start with ideas and then we act on them. I'm gonna make the same thing on this side of my beautiful board with the decision-making process that I used to have up to my early 20s, okay? Which was the decision-making process that I see advertised nowadays by literally anyone in the Western world, from my parents. My parents are very enthusiastic supporters of this way of thinking, but also American YouTubers, for example, they bring this thing to the maximum level with motivation and productivity and all this stuff. And basically what they say is, in this case, as you see, I'm going down because it's more visually appropriate for this way of thinking. So a decision, ideally in the Western way of thinking, is made by who has enough willpower to make it, right? And what determines willpower? An idea. The idea of what's good or right. Usually you start by this, and then when you're a kid, they teach you have to have willpower to do the right thing. So you apply your willpower, and then finally you make a decision. You make the right decision, right? This whole way of thinking is based on what quality? Human quality. Discipline. Discipline is what allows this whole decision-making process to happen. Now, this is my new me, this is my old me. And I think many of the people who complain about making the wrong decision all the time follow this scheme of thinking, because this is based on what's good or right. So what's right or wrong? And to me, in decision making, there is no right and there is no wrong. Let me explain. In human behavior, there is a right or wrong relatively to a society's laws, a society's rule. So in one society, it might be wrong to quit your stable and safe job to go chase your dreams. In another society, it might be the good thing to do to quit your boring job and go chase your dreams because you can. But this is always relative to the community we live in, and we don't live anymore in a world where communities are close. We live in a world that is getting more and more globalized, where different cultures clash with each other and they exchange elements and stuff like that. So I also think that there will be some major changes in morals, in how people are supposed to behave. And I'm in that situation. I don't live only in one culture at the moment, I live in several different ones. So how do I make my life choices? Well, I make them based on what makes me happy. And you might think that this is a selfish way of thinking. I don't think so, because I will never be happy if someone around me is not. If the way I behave makes someone around me not happy. I will never be satisfied with the type of person that I am if I'm harming someone else, if I'm hurting someone. So to me, focusing on what makes you genuinely happy, not momentarily happy, genuinely happy, content, in harmony with the world, is a win-win situation because it's gonna be the good choice for you and the good choice for the people around you. Okay, I redid the whole thing on the other side. I think this is a better representation because you arrive to the same type of thing, which is behavior. This is the line of behavior, okay? This is the line of behavior. You have on one side the decision, like decision. On the other side, you have the choice. And decision implies the idea of discipline is made possible by discipline, whereas choice is made possible by the simple awareness. It's a way more spontaneous kind of action, I think. This whole cycle comes from the idea of right and wrong and the willpower to do something right instead of doing something wrong. This cycle comes from the seek of the long-term happiness, and from what we think will make us more happy, it springs the desire of doing something and therefore the choice of one option rather than the other. Now, one thing that I observe is that this cycle comes from an internal input, right? Because it's our happiness. It's not something that comes from outside. Nobody tells us what will make us happy. It's just us. We have to know what makes us happy in order to make a choice, ultimately. This cycle, instead, comes from an external input, which is the idea of right and wrong. We are not born with the idea of right and wrong. It's taught to us. It's decided by society, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It's just, I think that this cycle should be included in this one and not the opposite. This is a more universal kind of decision-making process. Like if you are not in any society, if let's do a mental experiment now, if tomorrow there is no nations, there are no cultures, there like a natural disaster happens, I don't know, and you find yourself living together with people from other nations that don't exist anymore, okay? This is more universal. This is the cycle that you need to apply because this one is not working anymore, because there is not idea of right and wrong anymore. So this is more universal, but this cycle is still valuable in the moment where you have to make choices where one of the options would break the law of your country. That's what I think. By the way, this was not a real planned video. So I wrote this scheme one morning right after meditating. It was probably not a very successful meditation session because you are supposed to not think about anything while you meditate. But when I finished, I took a piece of paper and I wrote this down. And today I thought, you know what, I'll try to make this video. So don't think that I thought these things through for so long and now I'm giving you my truth, okay? There is no truth with the capital T letter, by the way. This is just, what came out of my mind in the past couple of weeks. It's nothing special. Maybe within 2 months I will rewatch this video and I will think, oh my God, what bullshit I was talking about. But this is just, food for thoughts. Here, internal input and internal output as well. Why? Because I think when we make a decision that is based on an external input, also the decision, which is the output, is gonna be kind of directing to the external world. So we don't make it so much for ourselves, rather for doing the right thing. So for appearing as good people to the society, appearing as hardworking people, appearing as, it's all a matter of appearance, right? Whereas if the input is internal, you're doing it for your own happiness, which includes the happiness of all the people around you. Let's remember that, because I don't want to sound like a selfish person. I don't think I am. The choice is gonna be an internal output somehow, because it's gonna be a choice that makes yourself happy rather than appearing in some way. So it's more about the substance and less about the appearance. That's what I think. How do you make your life decisions? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought about this. Let's discuss about it. As I said, this is not written on stone, okay? This was just my very free running thoughts of the past couple of weeks. So it's just an input for conversation rather than an output of truth. Okay, so that's all for today. If you like this video, remember to turn on the notifications with the bell button, and I'll see you next Sunday.